Okay, this is Orlando Wilson here again. And what I want to talk about in this video is something what a lot of people don't understand, especially people that's new to the security business, close protection business, etc., security training business. And that's where you're going to get approached by people that asked you for proposals, but they got no intention, asked you for proposals for training courses, services, etc., but they got no intention of giving you the actual contracts. Why? Because they have other people lined up for the contracts. And I've had this numerous times over the years where people have approached me, and you mean these days I don't give out proposals. Very, very rarely when somebody passes my due diligence to make sure they're not just fishing. And generally a lot of people ask you for proposals, for training courses, etc. They're fishing. Why? They want to see what you're putting out there. They want to see your prices. They want to see what you're up to. Or they're just stealing your proposals and they'll rewrite them or use your ideas and push them off as their own. So me and proposals these days, when I do put them out, are very, very brief, and the people I'm giving them out to have to pass my due diligence. But back on topic of this, there's a lot of situations where people will approach you and ask you for proposals or ask you for contracts, and the reason being they need to make the numbers up. They need, once they put out a tender, and I'll explain this a little bit more in a second, once a tender goes out, they have to have how many quotes and how many proposals before they can choose the right vendor for that actual proposal. They can't just have one person and give that contract to them. Even though a lot of times people have that one person in mind, they need proposals from 3, 4, 5 people to say, okay, we went through this proposal, these proposals, and they wasn't good enough for our tender, so we chose this guy, girl. Okay, I remember, again, when I was in South Florida, how many years ago now? I remember once, I got a call from one company a couple of times, and I think it was associated with one of the counties in South Florida. And the county was putting out tenders for various security things, etc. And at that time, I had a B agency, which is armed security, or a security agency. It's all armed in in Florida. And this person kept calling me up. This lady kept calling me up. Are you interested? Are you interested? I said, no, I'm not interested. I'm not wasting my time on local government contracts. And she come back to me once and said, nice enough. She said, well, why not? This is something which we think would fit your profile. Why don't you put in? I said, look, as far as I'm concerned, how I know local governments work, especially in South Florida, that contract is already delegated to somebody. That contract is already delegated to somebody that knows somebody, to a friend of the person that's putting out the tender, some ex-cop or somebody who's got a security firm, private investigations firm, and you know what? They're going to give him the contract. They're not going to give me a contract, especially seeing I'm a foreigner, and you know what? I don't have much time for too many people apart from the small group I deal with. So there's no point in me putting in a tender, and the only reason these people are asking for different proposals is because they need the numbers to say why they chose this one person. And a lot of times, once you look at tenders, especially on the international market, especially when you're dealing with contracts for, I'm not going to name too many names like the United Nations, especially when you're looking at specific contracts, those tenders are specifically written for very, very few companies, and they're doing everything possible to eliminate any competition, any fair competition. Those tenders are going out to, those contracts are going out to the favored few. That's it. So it's not even worth wasting your time on. Another one I used to get calls from in South Florida was synagogues. And I knew, again, I was in South Florida, a lot of my clients were from the Jewish community. And one client especially said to me, well, there's federal money going out to the synagogues and I think other religious organizations for security. You can ramp up your security. The feds will give you a grant or they'll give you money, etc. And this lady said to me, pushed me to say, okay, can you put in some tenders for her synagogue? Sure, no worries. I knew her, she was solid, and nothing come of it. And she followed up. She said no. She said that when the contract went to somebody within the community, somebody from the synagogue. And after that, I used to get regular calls once a month, once every couple of months from a synagogue asking me, oh, can you give us a price for a training course, whatever. And generally my answer was no, unless I knew somebody there, unless it come through recommendation. And the reason being is all these people were doing was getting, they're most probably phoning around how many different training providers, because they needed 3, 4, 5 different quotes to put forward to say, yes, we looked through how many different vendors and this is the person we chose. And the person they chose is going to be from their community. And that lady said to me at one point, yes, apparently the money was delegated, but she didn't know where of any training courses that took place. Why? It's just taking federal money. That's it. But that's how it works. So this is where, and again, the reason I'm putting this video out there, somebody I spoke to recently put a detailed proposal in for something and they didn't get it. And the person that got it, they know, and they reckon's a muppet. And he said, well, they don't know how they got the contract. The person was not that qualified, not that experienced, barely scraped through the requirements as far as everybody knows, as far as this gentleman knows, and he doesn't know how he got the contract. I know how he got the contract. People like him. That's most probably it. People like him, or he's kicking back a percentage of the contract to the people that's giving out the contract. That's business. That's how it works. So this is where be very wary of giving out proposals, tendering for jobs, etc. Because again, a lot of people is just going to use that for their own purposes. And I don't waste too much time on that stuff these days. I used to in the day, how many years ago? But to me, it's not worth it, because to me, most of the good jobs, well, to me, my jobs, it's all word of mouth, it's all recommendation. I'm not going to go in, I'm not in a position these days to start putting in tenders for government contracts or whatever contracts anyway. It doesn't interest me. It's too corrupt, too much competition, too much hype, too much bureaucracy. I live my own world. But just my opinion, or a little bit of insight on why you could be putting in good tenders, competitive tenders, competitive proposals for tenders, and you might get a reply saying thank you, goodbye. And the people that's actually getting the contracts are not really worthy. Well, they know people, you don't. That's the business. Anyway, hope that's an interesting insight. So follow me along on social media for more insights. I've got a load of videos up now on, I like LinkedIn and X. We've also got stuff up on Instagram and YouTube. Look for @Risk Inc. or my social media is @ArtfulGypsy with a Z. So follow us along on social media. If you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. And don't forget, I've got an array of books up on Amazon. It talks about various aspects of the security business, close protection business, kidnap and ransom, and crime fiction. And as always, be good, stay safe, and try to stay out of trouble. Try.